All right, I think I can start now to host this program. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone. Glad to see and have all of you here. And also thank you for joining us today. And first of all, I would like to wish all of you happy World Firefly Day. My name is Wan. I'm from Malaysian Nature Society, and I'll be your MC for our event today. As we know, today's webinar organized in conjunction of celebration of World Firefly Day 2021. Before we start our agenda, I would like to get your attention and cooperation to ensure our program moves smoothly. Just a little bit housekeeping before we get started. To all the audience here, please switch your microphone mode to mute, and also please switch your camera mode to off mode. If you have any questions during the speaker's presentation, please type them into the question box in your Zoom control panel. Our invited moderator will bring them up during the presentation, and we will have time for question at the end. Ladies and gentlemen, let's start our agenda by playing the Firefly folk song, namely Firefly Tale from Thailand, and also the videos from International Firefly Symposium 2017. Let's watch it and listen it together.
ราวกล่าวขานมานานหากใครได้จับหิ่งห้อยมาเก็บเอาไว้ใต้หมอนนอนคืนนั้นจะฝันดีจะฝันเห็นดวงดาวมากมายฝันเห็นเจ้าชายเจ้าหญิงฝันแสนสวยงามเด็กน้อยนั่งตักคุณยายไต่ถามความจริงยายยิ้มกินหมากหนึ่งคำไม่ตอบอะไรสายหูใจเด็กน้อยอยากเห็นจริงอยากเห็นดวงดาวมากมายอยากเห็นเจ้าชายเจ้าหญิงอยากฝันสวยงามหิ่งห้อยนับร้อยนับพันส่องแสงระยิบระยับกันสว่างไสวไปทั้งต้นลำพูเล็กน้อยแอบออกมาไล่คว้าแสงน้อยมาดูใส่ไว้ในกล่องงามหรูซ่อนไว้ใต้หมอนแล้วนอนคอยฝันดีได้ลืมตามองเห็นคุณยายมาแกล้งถามว่าเจออะไรสนุกแค่ไหนที่ฝันใจเด็กน้อยจึงทบทวนไม่ฝันเห็นอะไรมากมายรีบค้นเร็วไวใต้หมอนเปิดฟ้านั้นดูหิ่งห้อยในกล่องตอนนี้เหมือนนอนตัวหนึ่งไม่สวยดังซึ่งตอนอยู่ใต้ต้นลำพูส่องแสงยายจึงยิ้มและสอนตาจะมองเห็นความงามที่จริงอยากขังความจริงไม่เห็นอยากขังความงามหิ่งห้อยนับร้อยนับพันส่องแสงระยิบระยับกันสว่างไสวไปทั้งต้นลำพูเด็กน้อยถือกล่องออกมาเปิดฝาแล้วแง้มมองดูนอนน้อยในกล่องนับรู้ก็ ก็เปล่งแสงสุขใสบินไปรวมกันเด็กน้อยนอนหลับสบายอมยิ้มละไมใต้หมอนไม่มีกล่องอะไรไม่มีสิ่งใดๆถูกขังนอนคืนนั้นจึงฝันดีฝันเห็นดวงดาวมากมายฝันเห็นเจ้าชายเจ้าหญิงฝันแสนสวยงามลาลาลาลาลาลาลาลาลาลาลาลาลาลาลาลาลา
花金菇，花金菇，闪闪烁烁，幸福快乐的种子。花金菇，花金菇，跳慢步，爱香歌爱土。Firefly 飞啊飞，飞啊飞，守护芬芳的土地。Firefly 飞呀飞，飞呀飞，创造生命的感动，点缀浪漫的岁月。一点光，一点梦想，一点爱，一点希望。Firefly shining in the sky, you light up my life。一点光，一点梦想，一点爱，一点希望。Firefly shining in the sky，点亮世界的爱。
2017萤火虫国际年会在台北。
What a great, beautiful folk songs, and I would love to make a conclusion from two folk songs. If you want to see the truth, do not hide the truth. Do not hide the beauty. Same for the firefly. Firefly shining in the sky, it's light up our life. Moving on to the next agenda for welcoming speech from Dr. Sarah Lewis, Chair of Firefly International Network. Unfortunately, Dr. Sarah is not with us now due to the different time zone. Together, let's watch and listen to the recorded speech from Dr. Sarah Lewis.
Hello, friends and fellow Firefly fans. Welcome to the 2021 celebration of World Firefly Day. A day, well, 2 days, dedicated to celebrating the magic and the majesty of these remarkable creatures. I'm Sarah Lewis, Chair of Fireflyers International. During this dark and difficult year, many of us have drawn our inspiration and hope from fireflies. And so this year, it seems especially meaningful to come together and show our appreciation for these silent sparks. Here at Fireflyers International, we bring together scientists, artists, people from all over the world, united by a shared mission to encourage the world to conserve their fireflies through research, education, and advocacy. Sadly, right now, these insects are facing many threats, from the loss and degradation of their natural habitats to too much light pollution and too many pesticides. We all dream about the kind of world we want our children to inherit. I certainly hope their future will include fireflies. So, wherever you are, please join us in celebrating World Firefly Day and tell your friends about it. And thanks for helping us to keep the firefly magic alive.
Thank you to Dr. Sarah Lewis for the insight of welcoming speech. Next, I would like to invite Dr. Kazuniho Sano, General Manager, Fuji Office Planning Group, Asahi Kasei Corporation, as a sponsor World Firefly Day 2021 to give a speech. Dr. Kazuniho Sano, the floor is yours.
Hello, I'm Sano from Asahi Kasei. Congratulations on hosting World Firefly Day. Can you see my document?
Yeah, okay.
I'm very happy to be able to attend this wonderful meeting today. I think you are not interested, but I have to introduce Asahi Kasei. Please be patient for a while. Asahi Kasei is a chemical manufacturer celebrating its 100th anniversary next year. These are sales and profit. It consists of 3 business sectors: material, homes, and healthcare. Asahi provides materials, medical care, and housing for the things we are using in our daily lives. We have factories and offices in more than 20 countries. That is all for the company's introduction. Well, I would like to explain our activity for Firefly. Japanese people like the scenery of Firefly flying around on an early summer night when it gets warmer. My company holds the Firefly Festival every year and opens it to local residents. I manage the Firefly project at our company, but all of us, including myself, are ignorant of biology. By the way, I had been worked petrochemical industry for over 20 years. Therefore, we seek guidance from university professors and museum curators. Through these activities, I hope that the environment in which fireflies can live can be regenerated in various places. And I want to bring back the scenery of flying fireflies. I will be explaining about the forest where we are seeing fireflies. Asahi created a forest on the land that was used as a factory. The concept of the forest is to create the original scenery that used to exist in this area. Trees were planted with reference to local vegetation. In addition, spring water from Mount Fuji is used to create a water stream. We can see fireflies in floor 1, floor 2, and floor 3. Please see the video taken this year. It's 2 minutes and 40 seconds. I will explain a little about the breeding of fireflies in Asahi Kasei. In process 1, hatched larvae are obtained from the eggs. In process 2, the larvae grow large. In process 3, the larvae are released into the forest river and raised to adults. This figure shows a device for raising larvae. The spring water of Mount Fuji is poured into the breeding trays. If the water stops in the summer, the larvae will be boiled and die. So it is important to manage the water flow rate. If the water stops, the system will alert my smartphone. So I can't take my eyes off for 24 hours. I want people to be interested in living things around us through the Firefly Festival. I am exploring the conditions under which fireflies can live, creating an environment in which fireflies can breed naturally, and aiming to spread that environment to the region. Time has passed, and that's it for today. Thank you. That's all my presentation.
Thank you to Dr. Kazuniho Sano for the speech and insight. Now, I would like to invite Professor Dr. Ahmad Ismail, President Malaysian Nature Society, to give a speech and to launch our World Firefly Day 2021. Prof, please welcome.
Rahim. Thank you, Wanudia. Good evening, good morning to everywhere in the world, because depending where you are. My name is Ahmad Ismail. I'm now as a president of Malaysian Energy Society. If you Google and formulation, maybe you know already Malaysian Energy Society is 80 years old now. We are one of the oldest nature-based society in Malaysia. And then on the Firefly, Malaysian Energy Society is leading. If you look at the history of fireflies in Kampung Kuantan, Kuala Selangor, MNS has started pioneering the activities and now become one of the important destination for firefly observation. But I welcome all of you to celebrate this World Firefly Days, and then it's become very interesting now because people like to see fireflies, people like to see nature, and then nature tourism now is become one of the important attraction, not just birds, wildlife, animals, and ecosystem, but fireflies is one of the attraction. In Malaysia, we are very lucky. We have a good distribution of fireflies, and then we are still actively doing research on that. And as what mentioned by Sarah just now, the rapid development and then the changing of the ecosystem might disturb the firefly population, and we need to come together. And today we have all background of people, scientists, businessmen, and then the nature lover come together to celebrate World Firefly Day. And then you know that fireflies is a very good indicator for the healthy ecosystem, and the whole world now are talking about ecosystem restoration, improvement of the ecosystem, maintaining the water quality, and then we are talking about climate change, and the climate change can destruction of the environment or natural ecosystem can cause some effect related to climate change, and we are also talking about life and livelihood. So these fireflies might help or support all these issues that I mentioned worldwide now. I would like to thank to the Asahi Kosei for participating in this meeting, and I hope we can work further in the future for the fireflies conservation. And I myself is some experience, more than 20 years, working with the Japanese companies, scientists, and including politicians who are interested in the development or restoration of the ecosystem for the wildlife and other things, including fireflies. So I hope Asahi Kase can continue collaboration and working together with Malaysian Nature Society and other scientists in Malaysia for the firefly conservation. Fireflies International Network also is a very good partners to promote these fireflies conservation, not just for conservation per se, but we can use it as a ecotourism attraction for the benefit of local people and the economy of the country. So I hope with these activities, we can come together, and our local partners, Tenaga Nasional, is a very strategic partners that continues contribute, especially in the Kampung Kuantan, Kuala Selangor, for the fireflies conservation. We need to get more participation. So far, very good collaboration with the local authority, Majlis Daerah Kuala Selangor, for example, Selangor Tourism Malaysia, but we need to go more to make the ecosystem is good for firefly conservation. So with this meeting today, I hope our mission, MNS movement towards firefly conservation will get strong support from the local, from international, and all from scientists to businessmen to protect and conserve nature, and especially for the fireflies in this case. Not only in Kuala Selangor, we have many places in Malaysia, including the whole peninsula and Sabah and Sarawak. So thank you very much for giving me the opportunity, and I hope you enjoy this panel discussion today and come together support World Fireflies Day 2021, and together we move forward for firefly conservation and protection. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Dr. Ahmad Ismail, for the launching of World Firefly Day 2021. Dear everyone, to complete our launching today, let's watch World Firefly Day 2021 compile video by Firefly International Network member from Thailand. And also we will have a short presentation created by School of Art students from Sunway University. Let's watch it together. Dear everyone, we are moving on to our main agenda today, namely Firefly Forum 1.0 with the title Firefly Tourism and Conservation. Before we pass to our moderator, allow me to introduce our invited moderator, Dr. Oliver. Dr. Oliver has a PhD from the University of Florida, where he investigated the fireflies of the West Indies. Currently, Dr. Oliver works in the Florida State Collection of Arthropods for the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services. He is active on social media and promotes Firefly daily on his Twitter account at Dr._Firefly. He is also as IUCN SSC Firefly Specialist Group and also Fireflyer International Network member. Without further ado, I would like to invite Dr. Oliver as our Firefly Forum moderator today. Doctor, the floor is yours.
Thank you for the introduction, Juan. So we are having a 1.5 or 2 hour forum today with a lot of very great speakers. We're going to have 10-minute sessions for each speaker, which we're going to have a keynote speak with Dr. Gurung starting off the forum. Then we have Avalon Owens, Dr. Thantron, Tanya Lopez Palafox following. Then we have a short video from the Zaragoza lab in Mexico, followed by a short intermission. And then we have Vor Yu and Peggy Butler finishing the talks of the panel. And then we have a about 30-minute session for questions and for the panelists to talk in more detail about Firefly tourism and how that is going, what we can do to promote that further in the world. We might have some time for questions for each speaker after their talks. If not, please put your questions in the chat, either here on Zoom, or if you are following on the YouTube channel, please put in there, and we will then consolidate the questions and have those questions for later if we can't answer them right after each speaker's talk. Please leave your video off. Also, please stay muted. But yes, so just put your questions if you have any for any of the speakers in the chat. We will monitor that. We will then put them together for each speaker to make sure that each speaker can answer those, and they might actually also answer them in the chat live with you if they are giving a video report presentation. And otherwise, please follow along and get an insight in how much Firefly tourism is happening around the world. And we know all the, we know the two main places in Tennessee and in Malaysia, but there's a lot of other places around the world that have actually a lot of Firefly tourism going on. So let me introduce our first speaker, who will start shortly with Dr. Ham Gurung, who works currently for BirdLife International, where he is a regional project manager who provides strategic leadership and network development for them. And he will talk the magic of fireflies and their tourism potential. So this is the perfect talk to lead us into all the more specialized talks that will follow after Dr. Gurung. So if Dr. Gurung is ready to give the talk, I turn it over to him and we can start with the forum.
Thank you, Oliver. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, friends and colleagues, and all the fireflies lovers around the globe. It is indeed a great privilege for me to deliver the keynote speech. And I would like to thank the Malaysian Nature Society the bird life pattern in Malaysia, and the Fireflies International Network for inviting me for this special event. It is very important to share and know about fireflies. I think within the next couple of hours, we'll be learning, we'll be sharing lots of ideas and thoughts about the magic of fireflies. I just like to share my thoughts and my stories that may link and may support for firefly conservation in the future. So it is called Junkiri or moonbugs in Nepali context. By the way, I'm from Nepal. So where I was born in the village called Siklis in Nepal, which is about 2,000 meters above sea level. 40 years ago, I used to see lots of fireflies. Even the fireflies used to enter in my home during the evening, especially during the monsoon time. But today, no more. So I had the curiosity about the magic of fireflies. And I think after 40 years, I can see two things about their magic. The first thing is about the unique biology of fireflies. Our speakers, later I think we'll be speaking lots about the biology, the science of fireflies. Second thing that makes magic and unique is the chemical reaction within the body of fireflies that can create the light through the process of bioluminescence. So which makes very interesting, and particularly children in all over the world attract fireflies because of their unique and magic lights. So this is about the general fireflies, that the magic can be seen through this insect. But the most important thing which we don't know is about the science of fireflies. And my colleagues later will be explaining lots about the fireflies science. And I knew basically I'm not an entomologist. So honestly speaking, I don't really know much about fireflies, but I love them. So today globally, there are over 2,200 fireflies, but from my understanding, I think among the insects, I think fireflies are one of the least studied in the scientific community. As I asked with many entomologists and scientists and students, they say, we don't have money to study about fireflies. So, but the good thing is now even you can see the firefly, the IUCN red listing, in particular in North America. So it is happening, and I think the future is bright. So this is part of the science of fireflies. But what is the most important thing is there's a special and unique and profound impact in the lives of people. In our culture, we can see lots of poems, we can read stories and songs. Lots of people sing about fireflies, usually connected with the love and the romance. I think for the fireflies, the blinking of lights is also somehow a message of love and romance. So this is one example I want to share from Nepal, where Bipul Chetri from India, he started to write and had a song 4 years ago, and 7.6 million views was I just found just yesterday. And just last month, 1 month ago, Diksha Thapa from Nepal, who has a magical voice, 1.2 million views within just 1 month, which means 40,000 views in a single day. So there's a profound impact in the life of people. The song they sing, the poem, the stories, even including bedtime stories for kids. So this is, for example, the one song I just like to say in Nepali, so you can have a special connection. Akasema tara juneli raat, kal kal khola bageko, timera ma basi herirae, junkiri nacheko. So stars adorn the skies as the stream flows in silence. It is when we sit down together and watch the fireflies dance. So this is the firefly dance. there are so many people have connected in their life. So this is part of the profound impact on our culture, on our society by fireflies. Another important aspect about the economy of fireflies. I think as Prof. Ismail has mentioned, the ecosystem value that fireflies brings, I think, because no study has been done, we can't tell in exact figures, but it's tremendous. So we saw from Professor Sarah Lewis about her welcome address, and also the videos like the light pollution, the trampling, and the habitat destruction. So these are the key challenges or threats in fireflies conservation. So if we want to promote tourism, firefly tourism, we need to link and integrate ecotourism within the ecotourism framework, where we need to understand and need to think four important things. The first is about nature-based tourism. So which is basically because the fireflies, they are insects, special, unique, so they are part of nature-based tourism. And in the ecotourism system, it must support conservation activities, because if there is no conservation today, there will be no tourism tomorrow. So you have to conserve to promote tourism. And as also mentioned in the video, we need to have a sustainable management plan in place. We cannot have to harvest, destroy the fireflies just for the benefits of few years for tourism, but we must have a sustainable management plan in place so that we can create a win-win situation. And the final and the most important thing is environmental education. I usually say the three aspects of environmental education, the 3 A's: awareness, attitude change, then action. So when we have 3 A's in place, then we can help to address the and minimize the threats, and the educated people can save and love fireflies. So we can see lots of very good example, best practices, particularly from the recent in a paper that came out in international journal, which I'm the co-authors. So we can see best practices and good examples, particularly from Southeast Asia and North America. From the 12 countries, we can see over 1 million tourists visit every year. So we can see how fireflies tourism can be promoted and also improve, as Prof. Ismail has mentioned, the livelihoods of people, the communities who live nearby the fireflies or forest or their habitats, so that it can create a win-win situation. So having said that, it can also learn by other countries. For example, there are many countries, and also fireflies are not the product of tourism yet. For example, my country, Nepal, when you say about fireflies, no one knows about fireflies, but everybody knows about mountains. And lots of tourists visit there to see the mountains, because mountains have been promoted, like by the BBC. By BBC, there are 50 places in the world that you should visit before you die. And one of them is the Himalayan range. So the mountains, the Himalayan, so people go there to see the mountains. But now the very encouraging things, like one of the fireflies, colleagues who have created a back to nature resort and started to promote fireflies. And one of my colleagues, Krishnamani Baral, who is also a journalist, he's taking the pictures. So just next door, people didn't realize there's a fireflies, but today you can see and we can learn. And the fireflies are in Nepal or India generally during the monsoon, which is the main season for fireflies. If you want to go there to watch, and so we can promote monsoon fireflies during monsoon time, when the mountains are you can't see the mountains during the monsoon because the cloudy, it's raining all the time, but you can see fireflies. So this is just one tiny example, and many countries around the globe where you are listening now, you can explore the potential of firefly tourism. Yeah. So one interesting things, after our paper came out, particularly because I come from Nepal, there's lots of curiosity about fireflies. But there's a one question, and because we had people of all the naturalists, scientists, entomologists, so many people ask, where did they all go? Because you don't see now, even though I didn't see in my village when I go there. Where did they all go? That was the question. So there's two articles in the newspaper by Nepali Times, the fading lights on Nepal's fireflies. And after 2 weeks, it was in the print newspaper, Night of the Firefly. So we can promote, firefly tourism, but where did they all go now? Because you have to see now, as Professor Sher has mentioned, now they're disappearing, so we need to protect them. So where the idea of the Firefly Citizen Scientist Group came, I had a discussion with universities, professors, students, and the Firefly study is not in the priority. So I thought, and with my young scientists like Repika, Roshni, Krishnamani, and Mr. And other youth who are really interested to know and engage in the firefly study. So we have created the Nepalese Firefly Scientist Group. There are 4 things that they are doing now, who are doing now. First is participatory observation and field survey. Second, oral history interviews, because people like 80 years old, 90 years old, 100-year-olds, they can tell their stories. So we want to capture about their experience in firefly during their days. And third is to create eco clubs in schools. So we want to create more citizen scientists as part of promoting environmental education. So that will help. But eventually, we want to link, and we're now linking collaboration with academic institutions. For example, the Agriculture and Forestry University in Nepal, the head of entomology department has called me. They want to collaborate. It's really encouraging. My colleagues from Australia and other countries are also already excited for collaboration. So these are the firefly citizen who have a passion to take picture and stay in the forest at night time until 10:30. Because for this, we need lots of passion and interest to do the job and to collect the information. So these are the fireflies citizens have already collected. So which we'll now compiling, and later we'll do analysis. So I think I like to thank Kaj Shanoshan and the Asi Kesai company for supporting this event. If you Google in the internet, you will see many stories, many brands about fireflies. I think not just thousands or hundreds, but millions of people are creating jobs, selling the Firefly brand name, from cartoons to light bulbs, restaurants to brightening creams. But one interesting thing, in 2018, I flew from Singapore to Malaysia in Firefly Airlines to watch the fireflies at Kuala Selangor. So it is very important to have a partnership with the corporate sectors so that we can save the fireflies and we can promote the firefly tourism. And Kaj Sanosan really mentioned, nicely mentioned about their habitats. You see, all the firefly signs. So it will be very important to collaborate, not just branding and selling the items, but to support and work together to promote synergy. So in this way, if we can engage firefly conservation, and I think firefly will become the part of our life. So today, I really like to thank you each and everyone around the globe, and very happy to have the Nepali Junkiri moon box in the old map about firefly, fireflies conservation initiative. Once again, thank you very much for your attention. Stay safe and well. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gurung. That was a very great talk. We sadly don't have time for questions right now, but we will address the questions later in our little panel session. And we're going to move on to Avalon Owens, who is a PhD candidate in the biology department of Tufts University. Her advisor is Sarah Lewis, and she will talk about lightning in a bottle, firefly conservation in the 21st century.
Thank you very much. Let me just share my screen here. Yeah, we'll get started. Thank you very much for having me here today. It's so exciting to see so many people as interested in fireflies and firefly conservation as I am. So let's talk about it. This is a paper, we had a survey of firefly experts that was published last year, in which basically, actually a lot of the people involved are here today, but basically we asked firefly experts around the globe, what do you think is the major threat to fireflies in your area? And it turned out that habitat loss was number one, and then light pollution and pesticide use tied for second. And that makes sense, right? This is not a very good firefly habitat, and neither is this. But neither is this. Even though this is a photo of a nature reserve where there are rules against chemical pollution, aka pesticides, there's nothing stopping these companies from putting out light pollution. And this is an egregious example of light pollution. Oftentimes it's a bit more subtle. So here is an image of what looks like a lovely firefly habitat, maybe in New England. You've got the nice farmhouse and fireflies are all swarming around, but there is light pollution here from this house. And obviously that's not going to kill all of these fireflies outright like pesticides might, but it could be gradually wearing them down over time until they slowly twinkle out, which is what people see in many places. And even in super dark, supernatural areas, you still get temporary light sources, things like car headlights, camera flashes, phone lights, etc. And these things actually are especially common at firefly ecotourist sites, because when people come to see fireflies, they usually bring lights with them. Certain event managers don't seem to be thinking about this very much at all, as evidenced in this photo, and others are trying very hard to strike a balance between public safety and firefly conservation. You'll hear a little bit more about the Pennsylvania Firefly Festival from Peggy later today. But why am I talking about this, right? Habitat loss, pesticide use, those make sense as threats, but why is light pollution an environmental threat, and what does it do to fireflies? Well, this image is just meant to show that light pollution can do a whole bunch of things. It can really just disrupt entire ecological communities. And the bunch of ways that light pollution affects the natural world have a bunch of fancy names. I'm only going to focus on two today, which are relevant to fireflies. The first is phototaxis. This is the idea that a lot of insects and other animals fly to lights. So you might be familiar with a moth flying to a candle, right? Most fireflies actually don't do this, but there are a few very interesting exceptions. Specifically glowworm species, which don't have a lot of representation today, so I wanted to mention them. These are species that are common in Europe and the UK, in which female fireflies, female glowworms, are on the ground glowing continuously all night long, and the males fly around and try to find them. These males can be tricked by artificial lights. So you can actually use light traps to catch them. They'll come, they maybe think this light is a really big, really beautiful female, and they'll go to it and then be very confused. So this is an image of a light trap used to catch glowworm males in Africa. And this is an image of European glowworm males sort of sitting under a streetlight. Presumably they flew to the streetlight, got very confused and sort of settled down. So this isn't great, right? Because these males should be flying around and mating, and they're instead just kind of sitting very confused. So that's one thing, maybe a small thing in the world of fireflies. If we take in all species, most fireflies, I think that's fair to say, most fireflies are not glowworms. They fly around and flash very actively. So there's this other thing that light pollution can do, though. I call it recognition. It's this idea that artificial light can interfere with the ability, of animals to recognize resources in their environment. And this is especially bad for fireflies because their flashes that we love so much, they show up really well when it's dark, and they don't show up very well at all against background light. And actually, this can affect glowworms too. There's a lot of research showing that light traps of the kind I just mentioned, used to catch males, they don't work as well under streetlights. You need to put them in the darkness for them to work, which suggests that female glowworms under streetlights probably aren't going to get very many suitors either. But this also affects flashing fireflies, the kind that many of us are probably more familiar with. So there's a study from 2016 showing that if you put a streetlight in a firefly habitat, Photurus fireflies in that area will just flash a lot less, probably because on some level they realize that they can't be seen as well. There could be other reasons, but this type of thing doesn't affect all species equally. So Photinus pyralis, the Big Dipper firefly, doesn't seem to care at all about lights in the environment. And that might make sense because they come out very early in the evening when it's already pretty light out. Here's another study of a Brazilian species where there's a very, very bright floodlight at some distance. And when that light is on, you see a lot fewer males floating around and flashing. But that sort of effect gets a little bit less the further you get from the light. So, if these fireflies don't flash, they can't find each other, they can't court, they can't mate, they can't lay eggs and start the next generation, right? So this could be very, very damaging over time. So what do we do about it? Well, for many years, firefly researchers have advocated the use of firefly-friendly light sources, which means lights that fireflies can't see very well or don't react to. And these are particular colors. We just can't seem to agree on what color we want. So red is a common option. Amber has gotten some traction in Taiwan, and blue has also historically been very popular in North America. So I'm very interested in this. I want to find a way that we can sort of balance human needs and firefly needs. And so I've carried out a couple of experiments to test this, which I will describe very briefly. The first actually took place at the Pennsylvania Firefly Festival, and it was on synchronous fireflies. And these synchronous fireflies were they live in the woods mostly, but I had these plots that were set at some distance from the woods. And in darkness, we would see something like this, where we saw a lot of synchronous fireflies flashing around near the woods. And then, they sort of tapered out as you got further away from it, sort of natural gradient. That's all well and good. Then we put lights there and saw what happened. And when we put an amber light at 5 meters from the forest edge, we saw a lot less flashing, a lot less. And then red and blue lights were kind of in the middle. They weren't as bad as amber. They weren't as good as darkness. In a slightly more complicated laboratory study of courting pairs of a different species that could see each other but could never meet, we exposed these pairs to all sorts of colors of light and found something very interesting. The males flashed a lot in darkness, about half as much under all colors that we could think of: cool white, warm white, blue, amber, red. And the brightness of that light actually didn't seem to matter that much. Bright red versus dim red, it's about the same. But the females, which not a lot has been studied about these guys, they seem to be much more sensitive. So they would respond to male flashes 100% of the time in darkness, really not a lot under light. They never flashed under bright amber light. And even under really, really dim, really, really red light, they only flashed about half as much as they would usually. So that's not great. But we can also see from this that maybe red and blue are better options than amber. And similar, with this study here, red and blue seem better options. And that makes sense based on what we know about, well, the fact that firefly flashes are yellow-green. they're not going to show up very well against amber light compared to blue or red. And if you take into account that fireflies are red-green colorblind, you can see that an amber light can be very, very close to a firefly flash. But something I want to emphasize is that color makes a difference, but the distance from the light also makes a pretty big difference. So if the fireflies were 5 meters away from the light source in the woods, didn't really seem to matter what color the light was. And similarly, the dimness of the light makes a big difference for females. So a bright red light is just as bad as a bright, warm white light, whereas dim red is probably your best option. So with this in mind, I've collaborated with the Xerces Society for Invertebrate Conservation to make a series of firefly-friendly lighting guidelines. I'm going to put the link in the chat after this talk, which really seek to emphasize that the best thing you can do for fireflies is just turn out the lights. You can't just pick a magic color and use it however you want. You need to be sort of cautious and really only use light where and when it's needed. And so I think, maybe I'm biased, but I think the Pennsylvania Firefly Festival does a really good job at lighting their sites because they have red rope lights to guide visitors to viewing areas. They're dim, not obtrusive, and then they turn them out to watch the show. So with that, I'd like to thank my funding sources and supporters, and I look forward to answering your questions.
Thank you, Avalon. We do not have time for questions right now, but I will gather them and ask you later. We're going to have to move on to our next presenter, Dr. Anjana Thantaran from the Kasetsat University in Thailand, and she will talk about firefly tourism and conservation. Are you there, Thantaran? Yeah.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
And
go
hello,
ahead with your presentation.
Sunny will share my presentation. And before sharing, because in Thailand now it's a raining season and sometimes my house is back out, so I prepare the special clip, like I have the video clip for you. It's for my presentation. I show you the beautiful movies of the fireflies from many places in the world. And first of all, I have to say thank you for the for friends that give me this clip and make the presentation so beautiful. Hello everyone, I'm Anjana Thantaran from Kasetsat University, Thailand. I'm a member of Firefly International Network and also be a member of IUCN Firefly Specialist Group. We realize the key threats and conservation issues facing fireflies in different geographic regions, so we published an academic papers on firefly tourism. Today I will brief you about it. Among darkness, we cannot see anything. The light become beautiful and attractive. In addition, the tiny flashing lights of fireflies make them charismatic insects. The fireflies have light-producing organs that allow them to light up through a chemical reaction called bioluminescence. The main function of their lights is for mate attraction and for predator avoidance. When there are a lot of fireflies talking each other by use of flashing language, it is an impressive phenomenon. So the firefly tourism has happened. It has the long history of firefly tourism in East Asia. The firefly tourism became popular in past few decades and were found around the world. From our surveys of IUCN Specialist Group, firefly tourism sites were found at least 12 countries around the world by having different local species of fireflies. Let's join in a virtual firefly watching trip from many countries. Let's go! We're starting from aquatic species in Japan. So beautiful. And this one in China. Here is another life history. It is a terrestrial species in Italy. This one is another region of the terrestrial species. It is synchronous fireflies in the Great Smoky Mountain National Park in USA. They are synchronous flashing fireflies. And the last one is mangrove fireflies. They are different from the other species. They perch on mangrove trees and fly synchronously like a Christmas tree. This species also found in Malaysia. What we get from firefly tourism? Besides economic benefit, the firefly tourism could provide conservation benefits. When people watch fireflies, they feel romantic and evoke childhood memories. They could receive unforgettable experience by spending little time in nature. So the firefly tourism could promote positive attitude toward biodiversity concerns. How could we keep the conservation benefits sustainably? There are some major threats of firefly defined. Loss and degradation of larval and adult habitats are the important one. The disruption of adult courtship due to light pollution and overuse of broad-spectrum insecticides could kill all stages of fireflies in all kinds of habitats. Firefly tourism is a threat related to the habitat loss and also create the light pollution. Tourism may lead indirectly to habitat degradation through soil compaction, disturbance of leaf litter, water pollution, or light pollution. It may change plant communities and reduce prey availability. In case of mangrove fireflies, where the tourists arrive boat to watch fireflies along the riverside, high levels of motorboat traffic can cause shoreline erosion, water pollution from gas and oil leakage. You might feel that the firefly tourism has many dark sides. We can have the bright sides with properly managed tourism. The IUCN Firefly Group suggests the best practice for firefly tour operation to promote more sustainable forms of ecotourism. First of all, we need to consider the habitat conservation. We need to conserve the habitats required for all life stages, not only for the adult, but also the habitat that occupied by fireflies during life stages and their larval prey. And how to do it? You can protect tourists enter the firefly habitats by separating the zone for them, making trails or walkways and viewing platforms, or to set the limits on visitor carrying capacity. When tourists access sites by water, tours should use non-motorized or electric boats, and no wake zone should be established and enforced to prevent riverbank erosion. Artificial lighting near firefly habitat, including street lights, car headlights, and lighting fixtures around building, and also restroom facility, should be kept to minimum while still maintain visitor safety. The shading of light bulbs is a good solution. There is an interesting case in Taiwan. The wavelength of light with low negative impact on fireflies was used in the Firefly area. The second is involve local communities as key stakeholder. Community-based observation is enhanced when residents and local organizations are actively engaged in tourism planning and management. One example of successful community-based tourism, the Malaysian Nature Society or MNS, that is the host for the World Firefly Days in this year, has worked for a decade with local villages to develop locally based tour of the synchronous firefly species. They provide training program, guide for the life cycle of the fireflies and need to conserve mangrove habitats, as well as the guideline for responsible firefly watching. And the last one, provide training programs for guides and materials for visitors. Training programs for tour guides, boat operators, and other community members is a good choice to give information to them. The trained guides could answer basic questions about species biology, habitat requirements, and conservation issues to tourists. In addition, eco-tourist sites should provide well-designed, accurate interpretive signage and attractive exhibit to promote positive attitude toward biodiversity conservation. For tourists, we have some easy etiquette for firefly watching. The first one, please do not use and produce any kinds of light, for example, flashlights, lantern, phones, including light-up tools. And the second, no flash photography, so you can shoot firefly photos, but no flash. If you walk out of the trail, you might kill some fireflies and their prey, so stay on the market trail at all times. It's also safe for snakes or other poison animals. And next is speak quietly. Everyone needs romantic, so just keep quiet. And do not capture fireflies or disturb their display sites. Is very important. And next is no smoking or heavy perfume. Firefly need clean air too. And the last one, many firefly watching sites is in nature, so there are a lot of mosquitoes. So cover up for mosquito protection. No insect repellent is the best. Firefly ecotourism has the potential to yield substantial economic benefit across multiple scales, ranging from local communities, states, regions, and nations. It is necessary to ensure long-term survival and reproduction of the focal firefly species. The suggested guideline from IUCN Special Group might help to promote more sustainable ecotourism. It's not difficult to keep economic and conservation benefits. Let's do it for the tiny insect.
Thank you for the presentation. We again do not have time for questions. We will address any questions to you later. And we're going to move on to our next speaker, Tanya Lopez-Palafox, who studies sexual selection and population genetics of Photinus palacioi at the National Autonomous University of Mexico. And she will talk to us about community building fireflies, a look beyond the sparkles. Are you there, Tanya?
Yeah. I'm here. Thank you very much. I'm really happy to be here with you, sharing our experience, knowledge, and also the love that we feel for these beautiful beings. I also sent my videos presentation to Sonny. So, Sonny, can you play my video, please? All right. Also, I can play it if you would like to.
There's okay.
Thank you. Hello, I am very pleased to be here with you today sharing my experience about firefly sightings in local communities. My name is Tania Lopez Palafox and my talk is titled Community Building Fireflies, a Look Beyond the Sparkles. The perceived potential of ecotourism as an effective tool for sustainable development is the main reason why various sites are adopting it and including it in their economic development and conservation strategies. The objective is that this practice focuses on the approach and learning of nature, has a local orientation, and contributes to the conservation and preservation of such areas, in addition to serving as an engine for the creation of employment for indigenous people and local communities, and to promote their culture and products. Carefully planned and operated ecotourism sites, especially if they are based in small communities and include local participation, can provide direct benefits that could offset the pressure of other less sustainable activities that make use of natural and cultural resources. During the last decades, tourism focused on the sighting of synchronous fireflies has increased exponentially. Also, these practices have been carried out in different parts of the world for many years. Today, it represents one of the most important tourist attractions focused on the precision of insects. Until now, we know much more about the positive and negative consequences that this type of activities bring with them in firefly communities. Without a doubt, this has been the result of great collaborative effort throughout the world. But how much do we know about existing synergy between fireflies and local communities? What's more, how much have we turned towards the local communities that coexist with fireflies and are those who, like fireflies, are directly impacted by these activities? Under the ideal ecotourism scenario, assets are generated within the community itself, taking fireflies as the main attraction. What is generated from the assets is distributed among the actors involved, and a part is destined to the conservation of the area. As a result, there are profits, economic and social growth, and above all, protection of the environment. The fact is that in reality, this is not the case, at least not in the vast majority of cases. In my experience working for several years in the sighting centers of some places in Mexico, I have been able to notice two main problems around the sighting of fireflies from the perspective of the communities. The first of them has to do with the land tenure model. In the 3 states of Mexico in which I have been working, there are different property titles. On one hand, there are the particular properties that are those people who own a part of territory and only belong to, so to speak, a single physical figure. On the other hand, we find the hidden properties. In this property system, the lands are collective and divided and without the possibility of being sold without a communal agreement. Sometimes these ejido lands are owned by many people. For example, in Tlaxcala, in the state of, in the part of Nacamilpa, there are several ejidos that belong to more than 300 different people. Under this ownership scheme, two things are always shared: work and economic gains. Why is land tenure so influential? It is very easy, actually. When the desire is to actively involve local communities within ecotourism and conservation schemes, which in theory should always be the case, it is necessary to join forces from different fronts. The fact that the land is privately owned provides the advantage that since it deals specifically with a few people, communication and organization are relatively easier. Now, when the land is owned by the ejido, the advantage is that decisions are always made by everyone. In this case, if it is possible to establish some actions in favor of the conservation of firefly population, This can be proposed to the representatives, and everyone agrees that everyone must work in the same way, obtain profits in equal parts. The complicated thing is that this type of property has a rotation of representatives every year. Therefore, it is very difficult to carry out projects in the medium and long term. There is not really a follow-up or a recording of projects. The people who work on a task one year are not the same which you can find the next year. But what is really complicated, regardless of the property title, is to combine the wills and interests of all the actors involved. In addition, it is frequent that as a result of these activities, there are social conflicts due to the decisions that are made on the land. This has led on several occasions to revenge between the inhabitants themselves on their own ejidos. For example, on some occasions, they have burned certain areas of the forest to prevent the sighting activities from continuing. And I have witnessed this on several occasions. This clearly led to the disappearance of fireflies and many other organisms in those areas, and consequently the impediment of sightings. The second big problem is that ecotourism necessarily involves informed tourism. Therefore, it requires informed providers. However, in the vast majority, firefly sightings take place in areas with limited economic resources. In general, tourist activities in places with these characteristics leave few benefits to the communities beyond employment, which is often precarious. I have realized that many times external service providers to the local community are the ones who take control of the activities, and it is through them that the economic flow of the region is defined, since they are the ones who decide the benefit that will be assigned to the community. In reality, there are few local sites that attract tourists by themselves. Almost always, group of tourists are organized by people outside the community arrive. Of these fees charged to each visitor, only a small fraction is paid to the sighting sites, which only includes the cost of entry to the site. The guides are young people, almost always students, whose only salary is the tips they receive from tourists. Since most of the economic gains circulate outside the locality, the paradigm of ecotourism is broken. This has many consequences. Traditional economic practices are negatively affected, the environment and natural resources of the communities deteriorate, and the community is left with a feeling of displacement and in some occasions, loss of cultural identity. At the end, external agents such as service providers and we, the tourists, leave the site, ending the season. But who remains with the problems caused by these activities are local communities. And this causes great discontent, not only with local service providers, but with the inhabitants who don't take part of these practices, as occur in several places in Mexico. So what can we do? It is true, I do not believe that there is a single solution for such a complex and multifactorial problem. What I am sure of is that each of us can fight from our trenches and with what we can contribute. At the end, all the efforts put together will translate into results. Let's organize. Local communities need to organize themselves, meet and discuss their problems and constraints as well as their strengths and opportunities. This will give them an overview of what they need to do to be able to carry out firefly sightings, always putting conservation first as it is what will ultimately sustain them. In the case of large ejidos, appoint a committee specialized in protection and conservation work, with periods of popular representation, not of 1 year, but in the medium term, which will allow the establishment of a work plan and the implementation of projects in together with researchers, residents, and government agencies. We, the people who are dedicated to doing research, must reach out to the communities. For the sightings to be carried out in a successful way, and this includes the preservation of the environment, it is necessary that all the parties involved have information, and that depends largely on us. Hold educational workshops for the general public, informative sessions for guides, who are the ones who have first-hand contact with tourists and who must spread the message of the importance of conservation. Raise our voices toward the authorities and urge them to get involved and support the communities. All this with a solid base of information. that little by little we are generating. Those who have coexisted with fireflies forever are the local communities. They are the ones who can protect them to a greater extent. If we, all those involved, do not support the communities in this task, it will be really difficult for us to achieve the common goal, which is the conservation of these beautiful beings called fireflies. Thanks for being here with us celebrating these beautiful and extremely important insects. And thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Tanya. Very nice presentation, very informative. We again have to address questions later.
Thank you,
and before we go into a short break, we have a short video from the Zaragoza Caballero Lab in Mexico and the Nano Sapiens group about fireflies in the Matlacinca community in Mexico. Sani, if you could play that, and then after that we go into a short break.
Hello. First of all, I'm speaking on behalf of Professor Zaragoza Caballero, his students, and the Nano Sapiens group. Well, basically, this is a video resuming what we have worked with the Matlacinca community at the state of Mexico. We found 4 species of fireflies. One of them, well, our surprise is that it's a new species, and well, we considered that the best gift we could give to the community was for them to name the species. So let's look at the video.
Hola a todos, soy Arturo López Mérida, soy químico, maestro en ciencia e ingeniería de materiales y doctorante en ciencias ambientales. También dirijo un grupo de comunicación social de la ciencia llamado Nano Sapiens, y hoy me encuentro en la comunidad de San Francisco Oxtotilpan, en el municipio de Temascaltepec, Estado de México, y les voy a platicar un poco del trabajo que hemos hecho en este lugar. San Francisco Oxtotilpan se encuentra en el centro de México, en una región conocida como la Faja Volcánica Transmexicana, muy cerca de uno de los volcanes más importantes del país, el volcán Xinantecatl o Nevado de Toluca, y es el hogar de uno de los 5 pueblos originarios del Estado de México, el pueblo Matlacinca. La comunidad se encuentra a una altura aproximada de 2.600 metros sobre el nivel del mar, y el ecosistema predominante en la zona es el bosque templado, con un clima subhúmedo que presenta lluvias constantes durante el verano. La temperatura oscila entre los 12 y los 19 grados Celsius, sin embargo, en los lugares más altos se pueden alcanzar temperaturas bajo cero. El bosque es muy importante para la cultura matlacinca, ya que es su principal proveedor de recursos. En él se puede encontrar una gran diversidad de seres vivos, como animales, muchas plantas, muchas de ellas comestibles y medicinales, y también una gran variedad de hongos, muchos de ellos comestibles también. La cosmovisión del pueblo Matlacinca tiene una relación muy estrecha con su entorno natural y han hecho parte de su identidad a los bosques, manantiales, ríos, montañas y a los seres vivos que se encuentran ahí. A través de los años han desarrollado prácticas sostenibles que generan un equilibrio con el ambiente basándose en la conservación y el uso racional de los recursos naturales, por lo que a lo largo de la historia se ha reconocido a la comunidad Matlacinca como protectora del entorno natural gracias a la relación armónica generada entre ellos y el ecosistema que habitan.
A mí mi mamá me enseñó a cuidar las plantas y los animalitos. Por ejemplo, me decía que, referente a las luciérnagas, me decía que no los matáramos porque esos son sagrados.
Durante 4 años de convivencia con el pueblo Matlatzinca hemos aprendido muchísimas cosas. Y aquí lo interesante es que con el conocimiento científico y los saberes tradicionales convergen a través del diálogo de saberes, se pueden obtener cosas bastante interesantes.
Una de nuestras costumbres de nuestros abuelos era que, por ejemplo, las luciérnagas, antes nosotros cuando éramos niños festejábamos con ocote porque no teníamos luz, prendíamos ocote, eso quería decir que ya habían llegado los sanpedritos. A nosotros las luciérnagas le llamábamos los sanpedritos.
Cuando yo que Cari Shanishka, como tinerume a Juan Yana a San Pedro, a San Juan. De eso un pueblo caro cuando gaqueto chipito, pero pues vegan manituchi teso chamume, pero caro magando chicharro te yo que nerit como yo que Juani también así me acuani Yana a San Pedro, a San Juan.
A San Pedro, a San Juan.
Nana Lupe nos ha platicado mucho acerca de su conocimiento sobre las luciérnagas, de cómo desde pequeña ha visto que son de diferentes tamaños, cómo brillan de diferente forma y cómo con la llegada del alumbrado al pueblo, las luciérnagas empezaron a alejarse de ahí. Y fue justo aquí donde tuvimos un momento eureka. Ese momento en donde se juntó el conocimiento científico, el conocimiento tradicional, las observaciones en campo y esas cosas que nos hicieron pensar que estábamos ante un posible descubrimiento. Y fue así que decidimos pedirle permiso a la Asamblea de San Francisco Ixtotilpan para que nos dejaran recolectar algunos individuos de luciérnagas y llevarlos con nuestros aliados clave, el Laboratorio Zaragoza de la Colección Nacional de Insectos del Instituto de Biología de la UNAM. Y fue así que después de varios días y noches recorriendo el bosque Matlatzinca, encontramos 4 diferentes especies de luciérnagas, una de las cuales se ha identificado como Photinus palaciosi, la misma que se encuentra en Anacamilpa, Tlaxcala. La segunda es probablemente Photinus sturmi, y encontramos una luciérnaga oscura que aún no ha sido identificada. Pero la sorpresa llegó cuando nuestras sospechas se confirmaron cuando el Laboratorio Zaragoza nos dijo que había una especie que no se había identificado aún. Entonces asistimos a la Asamblea del Pueblo y en conjunto con ellos decidimos que el nombre científico iba a ser el nombre que ellos le dan a las luciérnagas, que es Totihui.
La propuesta del nombre es Photinus Totihui. ¿Les gusta la idea de Photinus Totihui? Sí, la verdad que la mano no está de acuerdo.
Y fue así que gracias al conocimiento tradicional, al conocimiento científico, al diálogo de saberes y al trabajo transdisciplinario, pudimos descubrir a esta especie de luciérnaga que servirá como símbolo de identidad para realzar a un pueblo que está perdiendo su lengua. Por eso es muy importante mantener el nombre que le ha dado la comunidad matlatzinca: Photinus Totihui.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
It was very emotive speaking with the commissioners, and well, that was our finding. Thank you all.
Thank you, Ishwari. That's great way of naming a firefly species and giving credit to the local community. So now we have a short intermission. We're going to have some messages and a few Firefly folk songs. And then after that, we come back. We will have 2 more talks before a short question session with all the Firefly experts that we have. Go ahead, Juan.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Oliver. Okay, dear everyone, we will take a break for 10 minutes, and please stay because we already prepared for another 3 folk songs, Firefly. So please enjoy the video we prepared for you guys.
花金菇来食茶，茶烧烧，配金蕉，茶冷冷，配龙眼，龙眼会开花，卜仔换冬瓜，冬瓜好煮汤。 卜仔换醋坑，醋坑爱起火，高金箔仔咸脆果，脆甲草花搭，咸稻火。
Ting 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 ina uman kuraan ma piat piat tai i kilang kilangan ting 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 ina uman kuraan ma piat piat tai i rengo rengo san u apa punai ma piat piat habot tingra u apa punai balikat udalaya ting 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 apa punai satihi engkau misalama
Baini bajis Juan, baini bajis Juan, antan daida danom hai ma pais, antan senji danom hai ma davos, baini 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 bajis Juan.
What interesting folk songs. We moving on to our main agenda with the forum. So now I pass the role to Dr. Oliver to continue the forum session.
Thank you. We are going to have two more presentations before we move into a bigger forum where we can address some of the questions that you guys had, and our experts can elaborate on some of the Firefly tourism topics. Our next talk is from Bo Yu, who studies fireflies in Hong Kong since 2007, has published a book, several articles about them, and he will talk about a report from the 2020-21 Hong Kong Firefly Survey team, telling us how many fireflies are in Hong Kong and where they are found. More?
Yeah. I'm so excited to give a presentation on the experience of So I'm going to share the experience of the Hong Kong Firefly Survey team 2020 to 21. And this Firefly Survey team was established last year, the World Firefly Day 2020. So it operated for 1 year. At the time, we come up with the idea of forming the Firefly Survey team. The first question we asked, oh yes, sorry. The first question we asked is how many people will join this Firefly Survey team? Because we require the team member, the applicants, they have to pay deposit to make sure that they would go through the whole program and fulfill the commitment. And so at that time, we set a standard. The standard is 5 person or more. Then we do the survey team. But somehow, and finally, it turned out we have more than 34. Actually, we didn't accept all the applicants. So, and finally, we have 34 team members, and totally we have 210 survey done, involving 23 different survey sites, and the total distance of survey is 432 kilometers. Composition of the team members, male and female more or less half and half. Although we have members from all age range, but majority of our team members are young people, 20 to 30 years old. It is also interesting to look at their occupation. It is quite diverse, and only 26% come from environment or ecology related occupations. We start with 4 lectures, each is 2 hours, to talk about Firefly morphology, life history, and everything they need to know about fireflies, especially Hong Kong fireflies, and also identification, classification, involving all the 29 species of firefly known in Hong Kong. And of course, we also talk about flats. And after the 8-hour lectures in 4 sections, then they have to go out to do pedicle training. And we have 6 pedicle training, and all members need to do at least 4 within these 6 pedicle training. And it is quite evenly distributed. The pedicle trainings last from August to December, so it involves summer and winter, wet season and dry season. After the lectures and after the pedicle training, they start doing the survey, starting from 2021. So they have half years to do at least 5 survey for each member. So the first one is looking for the female Diplopladon atrid penis. We only know the male, which was newly described in 2017, and the members are required to go to the type localities, which the type locale and Mtong Chai, to try to look for the female. The female, we think it should be very similar to the real world worm in the North America, and the survey period is from April to May. 22 participants. We have done 42 surveys, but unfortunately, both male and female were not found. For another species, it is better. Stenocadia species. We have a lot of record, actually very abundant record of the male, because it is readily attracted to the Malassez trap. Sometimes we can trap tens or even hundreds of the male in trap, but no one knows the female. After 30 survey done, finally we have one member take a photo of a mating pair. So we found the female. This is another task. The Raclophramus hymalis, also a newly described species a few years ago. And this is a winter species, so it only come out in January and February. We identified 12 potential sites in addition to the 3 sites we already know. So we want to know the range of these species in Hong Kong. And in January, February, we have done 45 surveys within these 12 potential new sites. We found one new location record, so not too bad. For the same species, we also want to monitor the population trend. So the members are required to walk along a designated belt transit 2 kilometer road. So they walk along the road and look at the roadside to look for these species. And so 17 participants, we have done 31 surveys. Actually, it's quite boring because they have to go to the same place, same routes, doing the same thing very repeatedly. What we found is compared with 9 years ago, 9 years, 8 years, and 7 years ago, we have a lot of record on the same belt transit, and we found that there is a very significant population reduction rate of 88%. Another species, we do the same thing. The range, because this is also a rarely distributed species in Hong Kong, and also quite newly described in 2017. We identify 1, 2, 3 sites, potential sites, and we have done 11 survey, but found nothing. Population trend of this species. The members went to the type locality, which is about 1 to 2 kilometers path. And in May, we have done 17 survey, and apparently we found a significant population reduction, but we still need time to analyze the data. Smaller islands. We identify 15 islands we planned to go, but somehow because this is the final task, and most of the members, they already fulfill the requirement that each member needs to do at least 5 survey. So not many members still want to go. Then we only done 7 surveys, and no Firefly was found in these 3 smaller islands. Other findings, besides our designated tasks during the survey, our members also found new location records for many different species, and also new flight period record, new predation record. Most interesting is we find 2 probably undescribed Firefly species. Recommendations. So we have completed this Firefly survey, the 1 year survey, and after evaluation, we recommend we should establish another one. Actually, it is going to establish in tomorrow. We have finished our recruitment, the recruitment process. And the population trend study should go on, especially this with the 2 species we identify. We hope our members keep doing the population trends counting every year, and more efforts on small islands. So we hope this year we could do this task first, and then we pay more effort on it. Follow-up work. Although the last Firefly team completed the task, but we found some of them, they are really enthusiastic. And finally, we form a Hong Kong Firefly wet listing working group with several enthusiastic old members. So that's all for my sharing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, War. Very interesting presentation. In the interest of time, we're going to move on to the next talk and have questions addressed to you in the part after this. Our next speaker, our last speaker, is Peggy Butler, who is the co-founder and board secretary of the Pennsylvania Firefly Festival. And she will talk about firefly tourism in Pennsylvania and be careful what you wish for. Peggy?
Hi, Oliver. Thank you so much. And hi across the world. This is so exciting to be able to participate in this and see all these folks from across the world. So we're very excited. The Pennsylvania Firefly Festival started back in 2013, and I'll get into that in just a minute, but I want to say, for the sake of time, I'm gonna try to go through the slides very quickly. I did produce a video for you all, and we will share that link in the chat when I'm finished. We weren't sure, how the system was going to work out here in the middle of the forest with our limited internet. So thank you very much. So Firefly International Network for this opportunity. So PAF, we call it PAF, Pennsylvania Firefly Festival. PAF is a nonprofit organization, and it's run by a small group of volunteers in rural northwestern Pennsylvania, specifically here in Kellettville of Forest County. We also want to acknowledge that this land was once originally inhabited by indigenous people of the Iroquois Nation, including the Erie and Seneca people, and that they were the first people to notice the fireflies of the forest. And as I said in my bio, 2012, Lynn Faust and her fire team came to study our fireflies. My husband and I, Ken, we were operating a B&B at the time, and Lynn needed a place to stay. So we didn't know anything about fireflies at that time. They stayed with us for 10 nights and wanted to study a synchronous firefly. We didn't know there was more than one kind of firefly. So she found and identified the synchronous firefly along with 18 other species, nocturnal and diurnal species. And we were just amazed at the findings. So at that time, Lynn gave us a choice. She said, you could ignore this finding and the fire team will keep it secret and not tell anyone of the sites, and you can go on with your lives as if nothing happened. Or you could embrace the opportunity and find a way to celebrate this gift of summer that we've come to love. So however she warned us, you choose the latter, be prepared for an onslaught. Okay, thank you. Avalon is running my slides for me, so thank you very much, Avalon. Obviously, we chose to celebrate, and in the beginning, we were very naive about the whole thing, despite Lynn's warnings and the stories of the Great Smoky Mountains. We just never believed that 1,000 people would come to Forest County to see fireflies. And we started out by, thinking that we wanted people to see the fireflies for free because, of course, fireflies are free. And we were pleased at the first when people started coming from all over the state. The firefly is the official insect of Pennsylvania. So we thought it appropriate to have this event and to celebrate the fireflies. But then all of a sudden we were getting people from all over the United States, people who had never seen fireflies. And then all over the world, from your part of the world too, in Asia and Malaysia and China. So we've had people from every continent at this point come to the Pennsylvania Firefly Festival. So between 2013 and 2016, We were allowing camping on our field, and we provided free guided walks to anyone who showed up and wanted to see them. And we were making a lot of mistakes. We were seeing the issues as the numbers were growing, and we're learning some hard lessons. As Matt Miskey, one of our board members, and he performs music at our festival annually, as he said, people will wipe their feet on anything with welcome on it. So we were seeing the adverse effects of the crowds on our organization, but most importantly, on the Fireflies. So we knew then that we needed to make some changes. And in 2017, Dr. Sarah Lewis attended and addressed our audience as a keynote speaker. She spoke to us about the double-edged sword of ecotourism, and we realized we were endangering the very thing that the people wanted to come to see. And I liked how Dr. Gurung said, no conservation today means no tourism tomorrow. So we realized we were in danger of doing just that. So we started to implement some limits, charging fees, moving the events to other sites on other dates. And we started noticing numbers were dropping, but it still wasn't enough. So then by 2020, when COVID hit, that gave us a chance to reboot. And the pandemic constraints last June allowed us to hold a smaller event, much smaller event of just 25 people to watch fireflies. But so we had an aha moment. We realized that the people really wanted just to see fireflies and have a more private experience. So we didn't need food trucks and vendors and music for 12 hours. And we found that bigger isn't always better, and sometimes smaller could be a good thing. In early 2021, then, the International Union of Conservation of Nature released its recommendations of the sustainable firefly tourism, which many of you have already discussed today. I won't go through the whole thing, but our president, Jeffrey Kalta, wrote a letter of support of this finding and release of this information, and stated, that we already were implementing much of what was suggested and seeing positive changes as a result to our fireflies. So what we all say here from Dr. Maya Angelou is that when you know better, you do better. And so the rest of the Firefly community is now taking notice, and we are in support. So now our festival has a new normal, and it looks very different, a lot different, and has a lot different feel. We have set a low limit for ticketed registration, which is 50 people, but we're allowing 2 nights of viewing at the Kellerville Firefly Farm. So the event is now only 4 hours long, not 12. No food trucks or or vendors or anything like that. But we do have some snacks and beverages for people to enjoy. But we also provide some musical entertainment during the time of check-in when everyone's arriving. And we still have nature exhibits and experts there to provide information on the forest and the related information. And then just before sunset, we have a Firefly expert presentation to prepare the group for what they are about to see and do. And this year it was Don Salvatore from Firefly Watch who presented his program, The Secret Lives of Fireflies. Then we provide a Firefly etiquette briefing, divide the groups, the large group, into small groups for their guided walk to see the Chinese lanterns along the Tynester Creek. And then after 10:30, the synchronous show begins. So we bring the groups back together, and we separate them into 2 large groups of 20 to 30 people, and we take them out to the bleachers to sit and watch the show for about 30 minutes. And there's a musical serenade and an interpretive talk over wireless earpiece that we now provide. So they get a Bluetooth earpiece, and that provides the guide a way to communicate with the tourists without shouting or having to repeat their instructions a dozen times as people are walking by. So that's been very beneficial to use that technology. So the other events that we offer too are seasonal events at a Glow and Know campout. And again, the intimacy and experience of the campouts builds relationships and fosters conservation of fireflies beyond what a 2-hour walk can do. So that immersive experience has really taken off around here. The goal of our festival and the campouts is not to make sure that tourists see synchronous fireflies at their peak. Usually they see a small gathering, but our fluctuations in weather and temperatures always impact the firefly behavior. So we're not guaranteeing anything to our visitors. What we are providing is the information and building appreciation for fireflies. Most people who come here know little or nothing about the firefly life cycle, or that there's even more than one kind of firefly, let alone the 18 species. So, and I would count myself in that group until I met Lynn years ago. So we hope people will see synchronizing behavior, but more importantly, we want them to learn what to look for and how to protect them. We try to turn even the cold nights or the late season into a learning experience. From the beginning, though, we have been focused on education, and we are now in our 9th year and hope to continue Firefly programs and tours for years to come, but concentrating again on responsible and sustainable tourism. I hope you will be able to learn from our mistakes so we all can preserve not only fireflies, but the natural world in general for generations to come. We often say what's good for fireflies is good for everyone. So here's an example of some of the information which we provide in a digital form to the participants prior to the events. So we save on paper and printing that way as well. We like to use memory devices to keep things simple for people of all ages. And our saying goes, good watchers never crowd because quiet minimizes everything. So each word reminds us of the steps one needs to be a good firefly watcher, and for that matter, any wildlife. I hope you've enjoyed this presentation. You can learn more about us on pafireflyevents.org or email me at pafireflyfestival@gmail.com. Thank you so much to everyone involved today. Thank you, Sunny and Juan and Oliver and Avalon. Thank you. And it's been a privilege. Thanks.
Thank you, Peggy, for that presentation. And I'm actually personally looking forward to a one-day visit.
We'd love to have you.
We are done with our presentations. We now have a expert panelist session, which also, besides all the speakers, will be joined by Ahmad Ismail. And I'm not sure how much time we have, if we can go over 10 o'clock, since we ran a bit over with the presentation. So I have to wait for some of the Malaysia Nature Society people to decide how long we can go. But I do have a few questions for the panelists from the chat. And we might have had some in YouTube as well. I'm not quite sure. I will probably get that information soon. And I think one of the more interesting questions was, which I think whoever wants to join in for this one, is that Fo Lin asked or said that we had a lot of tourism-based presentations. Is there any scopes into nature education and public engagement? And is there any research on data that on changes in the habitats or movement of the firefly colonies and adjusting to environmental factors. So basically, are the fireflies moving away from these tourism sites because they're more crowded and there's more people, so are they moving away from that? And do you guys also offer nature education, public engagement efforts in your efforts to get people into all these firefly tourism sites? So whoever wants to answer this.
Oliver, I'll speak up for Pennsylvania. We do off-season firefly education programs for schools, special interest groups like Audubon societies and things like that. So yeah, we do a lot of off-season firefly education.
Oh, I would like to talk also.
Okay.
Here in Mexico, a couple of years ago, and especially this year, we tried to make a group, especially with tourist guides, which are very young people, almost all of them, and we made that with Daniel Trujillo. Daniel Trujillo organized a session, a kind of course that lasts two weeks or something like that. It was focused on give to the guides some information about the fireflies and what we know until the date, and what we know about Photinus palaciosi, that is the species that attracts a lot of tourists each year. And we have been working on that for a couple of years, and hopefully next year we will make it bigger and bigger and bigger. It's our goal.
Okay, thank you. And I think a lot of firefly education is still needed, because I think despite that it's a very beloved insect, that a lot of people don't know how many species there actually are, and not realize that we have over 2,000 of them. And because you see maybe just a few of them that are out in masses, and then you don't have that. There was a short question to Peggy from in the chat. Do you allow the visitors to catch the fireflies?
Not particularly at our site. We don't allow them. They really can't. It's very difficult to catch a Photinus carolinus in the dark. So they can't move around very much. I mean, every once in a while, one will come close and you can see it up close, but it's very difficult for them to catch them. There have been other opportunities during the pyralis season for children to catch fireflies, which is a very typical event in Pennsylvania and across North America, because they're so small. They're so they emerge early and they're so close to the ground. Children can catch them. We've all had that experience, but we do give them a lot of instruction about this is catch and release. We're only going to look at them briefly and let them go in the same area that we caught them. But for our event during the Firefly Festival and synchronous viewing, we do not catch fireflies.
Okay. I had a lot of questions for Dr. Gurung for Nepalese fireflies. There was one question from Anshana. How long is the life cycle for fireflies in Nepal? Do they hibernate? And then also someone wanted to know if there are any great spots that you could recommend to see fireflies.
Yeah, thank you so much for the questions and the interest. I'm out of the country, currently in Malaysia, so I have not had much communication with the Nepalese institutions. So I believe, yes, they will hibernate, because our main firefly season are during the monsoon season, usually 2-3 months. So rest of the year they disappear. So in this case, yes, they will. I don't exactly know because there has not been any study on the fireflies in Nepal. That's what I know so far. Someone also asked questions. I think 191 years ago, a British naturalist identified 3 species of fireflies. After that, nothing happened. So I myself really wondering what Nepalese universities are teaching, particularly the entomology departments and the fireflies. There should be, I think, need to revisit and also need to collaborate with international institutions in terms of knowledge sharing and how things are moving forward to generate the interest of young students and entomologists. So generally speaking, I can tell from my experience and in interaction with people from Nepal. Even I have had interaction with the former head of Nepalese Natural History Museum, who usually record and keep all the species of insects, birds, and everything. They had no idea. So, and I had an interaction with Leslie from Australia. I think so. I think 10 days ago or 2 weeks ago, she found 4 species of fireflies were found in the museum in Germany. And sometime I think around 1963 or so, some Japanese came to Nepal and they found 6 species of fireflies, but that has not been recorded systematically in the system in Nepal. So no one knows exactly about their status. So that's why we have been now, I'm trying to help, particularly mobilizing the universities to bring them in forefront so that they can take the lead and engage their interest to generate more knowledge about fireflies.
Okay, so actually there was a student, Tenzing Sherpa, who wanted to know if there is any way for emerging and enthusiastic entomologist graduates from Nepal to collaborate with the work you talked about, and maybe you can get in contact with him. But also there was one question I think that all of you can address is, was about if there's any cultural connection between fireflies and Nepal's population. And I think Anjana and Ishwari or Tanya can talk about that too for Mexico and some of the Asian countries, if there's any cultural implications.
Yeah, thank you. People like Tenzing, yes, you can join the Nepal Firefly Citizens group Facebook right now. And we're looking people like for you. So you can be part of this campaign right now. We have a team, Rebecca is the coordinator. So you can join. I encourage to bring more of your friends for this, to study about this insect. There are also question from, I think from someone that like they have had visited like Mount Everest or Annapurna Base Camp, whether they have any impact. I think so far fireflies in Nepal are recorded up to 2,500 meters because there's not much study has been done. So we don't know exactly the highest altitude that they can be found. And I have been in touch with Nidhi Rana from India, Dehradun, who is a PhD student. So trying to find the similar geographical locations. So maybe in the future, we can have a collaboration between Nepal and India in terms of firefly research. So we don't know, like Annapurna Base Camp is over 4,000 meters. So on that way, but generally speaking, there will be no impact from tourists because they go to the hotels by 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. After dinner, they sleep. So they don't, and there's no firefly tourism. So there's no impact as far as I know. Culturally speaking, Nepal have more than 100 indigenous communities. So generally, I don't see, but that's where we want to do lots of firefly oral history interviews to find out the cultural connection. Thank you.
If Tanya, Ishwari, Vor, or Anshana want to step in and talk about what you find in your countries.
Yes, well, as you saw on the video, the Matlatinka perform, well, they've done their own Firefly Festival like decades ago. They celebrate fireflies because it marks the beginning of the rain season, and it's important to them for the crops and growing their food. Well, something about the last question. This year is the first time that they opened their sighting site for general public. And well, Nanosapiens has been working with them about 4 years ago, and Lab Zaragoza arrived the last year. But we've been advising them about the responsible tourism. And it's a great time because since they're starting, well, we can do responsible tourism there before it goes to chaos like in other places. Yes, thank you.
Oliver, if I can say something.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for, I mean, from the previous presentation, I can see tourism become one of the important thing that we need to relate, or we can relate with the fireflies. And one thing in Malaysia, a long time ago, when Malaysian Nature Society involved, we tried to propose not just the biology and ecology and the threat of pollution and habitat destruction, but we also address on the issues of design. When we think of tourism and education, we need to look at the design of the location. Say now we are depending too much on the only on the boat activity. But one of the presenters just now mentioned about capacity, carrying capacity. This is something that we need to look at in Malaysia because the nature tourism become increasing now. Firefly is become one of them. The local authority need to work together with tourism and of course need advice from the experts. As Malaysian Nature Society is very concerned about biodiversity conservation and environment, nature, for example, we need to refer to NGOs such as the Malaysian Nature Society to advise the local authority. Because sometimes when tourism become attractive to the fireflies activities, many companies coming in to support, but they have no strong background on behavior, on ecology of fireflies, especially when they're concentrated to one locality. And that's how we need to have proper management. And research in Malaysia actually is all over the country. We have identified all the important places, and all those things actually can help to support the idea of carrying capacity and protection of fireflies. And of course, we need to study more, and a number of researchers still not encouraging. We need more researchers, especially the young one, and they can create their own job as a tourist guide or in the tourism industry. With this scientific background, they can do better activities and advice so that the activities in the locality is well maintained, well managed, and sustainable. Another thing, the speaker also talking about education, and Malaysian Nature Society is very lucky. We have many schools, nearly 500 schools with us. Then we do educate them on the fireflies ecology and tourism. I think in this group also, among the participants, we have many teachers that are involved with us in environment education and nature education. So this is additional for sharing what MNS is doing. And then of course, as my background is a researcher also on ecology, of course, research on ecology, habitat protection is very important. Thank you.
Thank you. There's also another question, I think, which gets close to this. It was originally asked to Tanya, and is there any ongoing conservation strategy involving the tourism state authorities or federal authorities? And I guess you all can answer that. If, I know there's a lot of nature conservation agencies or like groups that try this, but, did you guys involve the state or the federal government in trying to protect these tourism sites? And if Tanya wants to start, and then we can maybe go to Anjana and see if she has anything about that.
Okay. In recent years, the authorities have shown a greater interest in conservation. They have made regulations focused on adequate and respectful tourism within the sanctuaries. And apart from this, today there are no conservation projects that directly involve the authorities. Tlaxcala tried to do this like 4 years ago, maybe 5 years ago, forming like a group of specialists focused on fireflies before the sighting season or the reproductive season began. But it just stayed like in plans. I was working with them, but suddenly everything stopped. The next year they stopped calling us, and it has been really difficult to work with the authorities since they change. They have periods of governance, and they change like each 2 or 3 years. So it has been really difficult to combine the wills and the objectives with the authorities, especially with the authorities. In our experience, it's more easier to work with the communities and with all the persons, but not with the authorities. I think that's one of the part that we have to work this from this year and the next years that are coming.
Thank you.
Yeah, for Thailand, for the tourist attraction site, divide into two types. It happen in private area or in the common area, like a mangrove area or national park. They have a different in tourism management. For the private area, everything look easy. It's like you just give the rule and just control the tourists. It's so easy to do that. But for the common area like a river, for example, Amphawa happened in the riverside, and that is a common area. Everyone can join in the tourism who has a boat, motorboat, rolling boat, or any kind of boat. You can join. You can go to that site, and it's hard to control the tourism, so it's easy to damage. We have the problem with Amphawa, Samut Songkhram province, that we got it's like a failure management on that, and we lost maybe we lost 80% of firefly population there. And after the tourism get down, it's like when fireflies become low, tourists also become low. So when the tourists low, the habitat and fireflies can stay well and is come back again after tourism. After tourism not popular because not many fireflies, something like that. And I try training for the motorboats or resort or any groups or people in the local area. Everyone understands sometimes it's hard because they want economic benefit more than conservation benefit, and it's hard to realize about the effect of the conservation benefit, like when population decline, what will happen in the future. Sometimes it's hard to to consider, because at now as patient they need money, and that is the first thing that local people want. But after Amphoe is the example of unsuccessful tourism management. For now, any side of the Firefly tourism consider about that problem, and so now people try to follow the etiquette and try to have their own rules to protect their fireflies, something like that. And now we waiting for the nice tourism, like a good example of the firefly tourism for Thai that we can use is for Thailand too.
Okay, thank you. We only have a couple more minutes. We're supposed to end at 10:15. Maybe Vor, you can talk a little bit about, like, maybe you have some tips about how you engaged all these volunteers to help with, getting together and counting these fireflies, and maybe some other countries or places can do the same and have, like, good establishment of how many firefly species and which ones are there. And maybe you can talk just a couple minutes about what to do to get all these people involved in this.
Actually, I want to talk about the situation, the problems in Hong Kong. Yeah, okay. Although we have a lot of species known in Hong Kong, we found a lot of species in the past 10 years. And actually, many people like fireflies, and they know Hong Kong has fireflies, and they are willing to spend time to find and study fireflies. But it seems that, like many other places in the world, in Hong Kong, we are not well prepared. The hardware and software not prepared. For example, we have a lot of country parks, very well managed in the daytime. Education facilities, many staff go out to help the people visiting countryside. But at night, they are all gone. Nobody from the authority work at night. So the people, they just they find the fireflies or search the fireflies by themselves. And so the firefly tourism is now totally controlled by the commercial travel agency. And they are not, more or less they are trained, but there's no control on the quality. So sometimes we may have hundreds or even thousands of people visiting a very small place, and of course cause damages and many criticism. But it seems that the authority is not going to do anything to, for example, set up guidelines or control the number of people, number of visitors. The only thing the authority done is set up signposts along the path for firefly observation. And no staff, no guidelines, no training. So so if you ask me how what can I do, I don't know. I set up the Firefly survey team. It is more focused on Firefly study. It's not for the general public, educating the general public, or to spread the message about Firefly conservation. It's difficult, I think, in Hong Kong. For example, the light pollution, the agenda of light pollution was put on the table 5 years ago, and there's a lot of discussion. But now, nothing is done. Nothing. Yeah. So this is the situation in Hong Kong. yes, that's all I want to say.
So we're not all that different. We all have very similar experiences. The government, the US government agencies here, same thing. I hear you all. Yeah.
We may have
Frustrating.
lost Oliver.
Have we lost Oliver?
We lost Oliver. Well,
We
I guess
lost our
that
fearless leader, huh?
I guess that concludes the forum. Should we turn it back to
Juan.
Dr.
Juan is still
Oliver,
here.
are you
yeah,
in?
he's back. He's
There
back.
he comes.
Oliver.
We're ready to
no.
leave.
Yeah, okay.
I'm so sorry, my Zoom crashed.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone, for some amazing presentations about Firefly tourism, a very much emerging branch of our Firefly research. And I want to really thank the Malaysian Nature Society for putting on this really nice program for World Firefly Day. And of course, we want to thank Asai Kasai for sponsoring this event and getting us all together for these presentations. And that's it for me. And we're going to have some more fundraising and other presentations before today ends. And there will be more program tomorrow. So please stay on and join tomorrow again. And I will hand it over to Juan again.
Thank you, Dr. Oliver. Ladies and gentlemen, please give big applause and appreciation to our invited moderator and our invited great speaker for their great presentation. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, hopefully you are still here and please stay. We have a very quick presentation for next agenda. We're moving on to the next agenda for displaying video from Fin Fundraising by Redin Schreiber. The video is about fundraiser, and the Fin fundraise is purposely to help for travel fund for student and eligible NGO staff for the International Firefly Symposium, and also it's helping to support for Fin website and no charge. And also for your information, for those who are interested to purchase any items, from the Firefly experience, please go to the website, and for 3rd and 4th July, there's 10% off, and please use the code to get a 10 off discount with the Firefly Day code. All right. We're moving on to our next agenda. I would like to invite Ms. Eda Ezani, a manager of the Education Environment Division from Malaysian Nature Society, for the Butterfly of the Malay Peninsula 5th edition book launch. Please, Ms. Eda.
Hi, Juan. Thank you. Thank you. Right. So, good evening, everybody. My name is Ida. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. My name is Ada. I'm the environmental education manager. I'm also running our shop, Malaysian Nature Society, shop MNS. Shop MNS is actually a platform that offers general public an alternative way to support nature conservation through purchase of unique and exclusive environmentally friendly products inspired by the natural world. So when you purchase an item from Shop MNS, 100% proceeds after purchase will go towards supporting MNS conservation, education, and public awareness activities, which aims to create a safer world for wildlife, to protect and treasure the environment, and to build a future where people can live in harmony with nature. So before we start, I would like to take this opportunity to thank the organizers for having us this evening. I would also like to thank everyone who has stayed with us for the past 3 hours. We are now at the last program of the evening, the launch of the Butterflies of the Malay Peninsula, the 5th edition. For your information, Datuk Henry Wallo, Dr. George Michael van der Putten, and Nancy van der Putten have been instrumental in the publication of the 5th edition of this book. And we are very happy and very lucky because we have all 3 of them together with us tonight to introduce to us this very special book. Datuk Henry Wallo first came to Southeast Asia in 1963 between school and university teaching in Labuan. After studying at the Cambridge University, he qualified as a chartered accountant in London. During his study in the university, he led a student expedition collecting Lepidoptera on Mount Kinabalu, which is the highest peak in Southeast Asia. He settled in Malaysia in 1970, and since then has been closely involved with oil palm industry and the roundtable on sustainable palm oil. He served for 24 years as the honorary treasurer of MNS and lives in the hills outside Kuala Lumpur. Datuk, we welcome you to introduce and share with us the long history of Butterflies of the Malay Peninsula book. Datuk, the screen is yours.
Thank you very much, Eda. And good evening and welcome to all who have stayed on after the Firefly operation. Although the history is long, my presentation is going to be very short, to be followed by rather more detailed presentation by the Van der Portens, who actually edited the 5th edition of the book. The history of the book goes back to 1934. Could we have a picture of these books, please, on the screen? Top left. I don't know how clearly you can see it, but a small brown book, which was the first edition of 1934, which was about an inch thick. That's better, thank you very much indeed, which was a very basic introduction to the species of butterflies occurring in the peninsula. And at that stage, there were only about 700 or 800 species known. The second edition, which is to the right, with a green cover, was published in 1958, and it was written by Stephen Corbett, but unfortunately he passed away in the late 1940s, Pendlebury having been captured by the Japanese during the Second World War, and although he survived captivity, he passed away before he managed to get back to the UK. So the second edition was very largely Corbett's work, although it came out sometime after he himself had passed away. By that time, Colonel John Elliot, who had served in the British forces both before and after the war in Malaysia, the world expert on Malaysian butterflies, and I encouraged him to set about rewriting the book, which he did in the third edition, which is below the first edition on the slide in front of you. This was very much more comprehensive, although it didn't at that stage include photographs of all the species. The fourth edition, which is underneath the green book, came out in 1992, and that was very much more comprehensive, with photographs by the very well-known photographer Bernard de Brera. And by about 3 years ago, it was clear that A, the book was out of print, and B, a lot more information had come to light, some of which had been gathered in a supplement which was published in about 1998. So we cast around as to who the most competent people would be to do the fifth edition, with the assistance of Dick Wainwright at the Natural History Museum, who himself is a great expert on the butterflies of Southeast Asia. And on the basis of their two previous books on the butterflies of Sri Lanka, we decided that the right people to approach were George and Nancy van der Porten, who have done a superb job. And I'm not sure whether you've got a picture in front of you of the fifth edition in all its glory, which is much more concerned not only with updating, yes, that's it, right, but also is much more concerned with the life histories, on which they are particular experts in the case of the Sri Lankan fauna. And with that very brief introduction, I would now like to introduce George, Michael, and Nancy van der Porten, who will give you some account of how we managed to get the book written, a complete set of new photographs of very high quality, entirely during the lockdown, which in itself was quite a major exercise. So George and Nancy, over to you, please.
Thank you very much for that introduction, Henry. And greetings from Sri Lanka, where we are currently. I would like to thank the Malaysian Nature Society for allowing us to come here and share thoughts about how we wrote this book and some of our challenges that we faced. And that is despite the fact that I am speaking at a video conference where fireflies are the major topic of discussion. Of course, it's a very important taxon, and I'm sure many of you consider them very, very beautiful. And I consider them more beautiful than butterflies in the night. And I'm sure many of you enthusiasts indulge in your passion very, very late into the night. However, for your daytime indulgence, we have this lovely book and we present to you the 5th edition of the butterflies of the Malay Peninsula. Um, um, and I'm sure this book is available, as it was pointed out earlier, available for sale at the Malaysian Nature Society. And if anybody is interested, of course, they can purchase it there. Sounds like a sales pitch, doesn't it? I digress. So let me get back to some of the contents of this book and some of the challenges that we faced. We were honored to have been asked by Mr. Barlow to do the revision of the 4th edition of this magnificent book. It is an iconic book, a classic, and one of a kind. And of course, it is the Bible for many people who are interested in Malaysian butterflies, or for butterflies in the Malay region, I suppose. We wanted to make sure that at the end of the day, we kept the spirit of the book while we worked at the 5th edition. And also, we want to make sure that the end product measured up to the standards that are generally accepted for revised books and accepted by the readership that we have. So that was a very, very key objective. Just to comment about the 4th edition from where we started. Of course, it was written somewhere in 1992, some 30 years ago, and much information has accumulated since then. There were new species. I believe there were 20 new species that we recorded for the 5th edition. There were lots and lots of new locations, distributions. And in addition to that, and perhaps most important of all, are the taxonomic changes that have been brought about, especially because of the availability of molecular analysis coupled with morphological studies. And so that was one area where we had a great deal of information. And to start, how did we start this project? How did we get the new information that we needed? The first thing that we did, was, of course, to go back to the core agenda and the addenda of the 4th edition, which was published in 2000. And so the first thing that we did was we collected all the new information there, and including the 5th edition. This was followed by the update of 2006, although, of course, it was more appropriate to call it 2003 because it was posthumously published after the death of Eliot. And that had a great deal of information, and that too was included. Now, from then on up to now, we relied heavily on Professor Google, and we searched the internet extensively to find out all the new references that were appropriate, that were relevant to the butterflies of the Malay Peninsula. We managed to get quite a few references online. However, there were lots that were missing, and even the libraries didn't have any. So we had to go for secondary sources, and Henry was very, very helpful in that regard, and many other researchers to whom we wrote, and they gave us not only papers that were relevant to our project, but also leads to where we can get this information. So having collected this information, the next step was, of course, to include it in the book. It was fairly straightforward to include the new species, the new locations, and so on and so forth. But the taxonomic changes were the most difficult and the most challenging, because the changes are so extensive over the last 30 years that there was a lot of shifting of species from one tribe to another, and even subfamilies had changed. For instance, the Rheonids, which were classified under the Lycaenidae, were completely moved out of that subfamily, and they were moved into a new family altogether. And then there were similar changes for the Lycaeninae, CNP4, which had only one subfamily. The individuals there were divided into 4 subfamilies. And of course, this goes on. There's a lot of technical details that went into that revision there. So I won't speak too much about that, and I'll give you the highlights of what we did. Okay. Another challenge, of course, was to make sure that the book kept below 2 kilograms. And in case some of you are wondering what the big deal is about 2 kilograms, shipping is prohibitively expensive for books which are more than 2 kilograms in the international scene. So we tried to ensure, make sure that the book that we produced was below 2 kilograms. In fact, the increasing in price over 2 kilograms for international shipping increases exponentially. Now, CNP4 was almost near that limit. And here we were adding new material in terms of text, and then we were adding more plates. In fact, the plate count went up from 60 to 140. And so the way that we had to manage this was first to reduce or completely eliminate some sections of the book. And the section that we eliminated or jettisoned out was Cohen's bibliography. That was 50 pages, so we gained a lot on that. And that, of course, is available online from Henry. He has a digital copy if anybody is interested in downloading. That was the first thing. The second thing that we did was, of course, we tried to, instead of having single pages for the color plates of butterflies, we made it double-sided. So that too reduced it by almost 100% immediately. Instead of 140 pages, we now required only 70 pages. We went further. Instead of giving the images of all the butterflies with the full view from upper side and underside, we decided to display only half the butterfly. And that way we were able to save some more space. And lastly, we also reduced the number of pages we needed by going for a font that was much more compact. And of course, we didn't want to reduce the font excessively because of readability issues and so on and so forth. So they were kept to a minimum. So that was the way that we saved on the space. Now, the other thing, of course, was the line diagrams. We believe that the line diagrams, of which there were, I believe, 32, 35, I think, perhaps copied from version to version to version. I'm sure these were from version 1 or 2, and then copied on to version 3, and then the 4th edition. And they were certainly unacceptable for a 5th edition. They of course, has deteriorated in quality over copying the process. So we decided that these should be completely replaced. Of course, the challenge there was to get a person who could do the diagrams for us, and also rather economically. Many of them were very expensive, but we were very fortunate to find a very talented young man in Sri Lanka who was able to do that. But he was not familiar with the larvae and the pupae that we required him to draw. So we had to sort of hold his hand and show these are the important features that you should highlight, and these are the ones that we're not interested in. This is how you do not shade, and this is how you shade, and so on, and many, many other tips so that he can get it right. But of course, the problem there again was, where is the source image from which we can draw? Because he has to have images so that he can draw them. And again, we had to go to the web and copy and scan through many, many images in order to get the right one. And we made sure that the species that were illustrated in CNP4 were also the ones that we drew for CNP5. And then that took quite a bit of time. But we were successful getting it done, and the young man did an outstanding job on it. Okay. And of course, the most difficult part and the most time-consuming, and the one that involved the most amount of donkey work, of course, was preparing the color plates. Initially, we thought we'll simply take the originals from CNP4, the templates, and then make copies of it and use it in CNP5. Unfortunately, those were unavailable. So we went to the second option. Let's scan CNP4 images, the plates, and put them in. But that too failed because the quality that we got was, in the opinion of my wife here, Nancy, and myself, we felt that they were simply not up to snuff. And of course, that left us with the only option, which was to start doing the plates completely afresh, which meant that we had to take photographs of all the butterflies that we needed to put in the plate from whatever sources that we could get. But of course, this is also an opportunity for us because we could now create a very, very comprehensive set of color plates illustrating all the butterflies of Malaysia, both upper sides and undersides, which was of course not the case in CNP4, the 4th edition, and illustrate it much, much better. So having recognized the advantages, we endeavored to collect all the images. And of course, Henry was very kind to allow us to go to several museums. The first place that we went was the Lee Kong Chang Natural History Museum in Singapore. And we photographed as many of the species as we could there. And mostly the collections from Fleming, and I believe it was Doggett, wasn't it? Yeah, and those are the collections that we looked at. There were some issues there because during the transfer of the Fleming collection into new boxes, there were some mislabelings and some of the sexes were mixed up. So we spent quite a bit of time looking up just to make sure that they were correct, although we got some of them wrong still. Having collected all those images, we had to go to the Natural Museum London as well, because we simply didn't have all the specimens that we required. Now, of course, they were most welcoming, but unfortunately, the time we were there, they were reorganizing their collections and their database was in a state of flux. They were updating material and we really couldn't use the database to accurately pinpoint where these specimens were. And here we were looking at individual specimens that are found only in the Natural History Museum. However, the people there, the individuals, especially Jeff and others, they were extraordinarily helpful and they spent a great deal of time making sure that we got all the specimens that we required. Yet, at the end of the stay in London, we still didn't have all the specimens. And again, we resorted to pinching Henry, Mr. Balu's brains to see whether we could get people in private collections to provide us some of the images that we needed. And of course, he was up to the task and he got many of the images that we wanted. So that was how we went about collecting all the images that we required. But of course, there were also lots of private people who sent us images on request, and we really do appreciate that greatly, what we did. And so having got the images, we had to process these images so that we could use it on the plate. So for that purpose, we used Photoshop. Now, we spent a lot of time and mostly correcting the colors of the butterflies, because one of the things that one realizes when working with digital images is that what you see on the screen is not always what you get when you print it out. So we had to go through this iterative process, change it on the screen, print it out, see whether the color is correct. No, it's not, go back to it. And this was a bit of this was quite a headache, and especially with the auropolas, the blues. Most of the blues were difficult. So we spent an inordinate amount of time trying to make sure that we got the colors right. And in this regard, I must confess that the Singaporean printers were also very, very cooperative, and they recognized some of the issues and came forth with solutions as well. So we appreciate that. So having got all the images, the next thing was, of course, to move it into InDesign, from which, of course, we created the PDF for the final printing of the book. Now, it looks easy. And in fact, when you look at these plates, one thinks that, oh, it looks wonderful, but you have no idea how long it takes to get some of these things right. the vertical alignments, the horizontal alignments, the spacing, making sure that the lookalikes are kept together and that they're properly put either on the left side or the right side. And it did take a long, long time for us to get it to what it looks like now. Now, of course, the images themselves, we try to maintain it at the same size as CNP4. Just for familiarity, because when you pick up a book that you are very familiar with in CNP4, you want to see something very similar but with enhanced quality. So we kept the sizes the same, except for a few genera, some hesperids and some lycidids, because we felt that these images, if we give life size, it was way too small to find out any key identification features. So we blew them up to 200% the size of the original. And this is one change that you would notice in CNP5. So that was a task by itself, getting the plates together. So and all these challenges were, very, very time consuming, and working on the internet, and we really couldn't rely people to respond immediately because they had their own commitments and their own schedules to work with. So sometimes we would wait for a couple of weeks before we get a response from the people that we needed information. That's about that's about the end of what I want to say. And one last word, and that's for people who are listening to us and who are very interested in purchasing this book. I would urge you to make sure that you get a digital copy, a download of the core agenda and the agenda, because there were some errors that had crept in, and one would expect when doing a book of this nature with 1,051 species. So there were some errors which we corrected. And also there were many people who sent us additional information after the book was published. Locations, new species that they discovered or thought that they had. And there were, of course, several species that were missing, either the females or the males. And they were kind enough to send these things along. And we had included that in the addenda. So if you're purchasing, please make sure that you get a copy of this as well. And lastly, for those who may not be interested but are curious, I urge you to read the reviews of the butterflies of the Malay Peninsula, available on the internet. You can do a Google, and you will be really surprised what an iconic book this is. By reading these reviews, you'll get an idea of how unique this book is. And I urge you to at least have a look at it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed for that very concise and informative account of how you set about this very major work. I'm particularly conscious, perhaps more than anybody else, of the enormous amount of effort and time which the two of you have put into this exercise, and entomologists throughout Southeast Asia will forever be grateful to you for everything that you've done in respect to this book. And I hope that those of you who are listening who have not yet purchased will hasten to the M&S shop and purchase a copy. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Eda, you are muted.
Right. Thank you very much, Dr. George and Nancy. Thank you so much, especially for your hard work publishing the 5th edition of this book. As mentioned by Dr. Henry, the book is now available at our online shop, https /shopmls.ed.co. You can browse the shop for this book and other book collections that promotes the conservation of Malaysia's natural heritage. The book is now, the normal price is 260 ringgit, but until tomorrow, the price is, the book is under promotion for 220 ringgit only. And for M&S members, you will receive additional 20 ringgit discount. Proceeds from the sale of this book will be channeled to fundraise specifically for the conservation, education, and public awareness activities related to insects of Malaysia. I think we are running out of time. Let me check the chat box if there's any question. Yeah, all right. For those who have already purchased the book, the addenda mentioned by Dr. George will be sending it to you via email. We have quite a number of people who have already purchased the book, so I'll be in charge to send the amendments to you in due course. So I guess as we're running out of time, thank you so much again, Dato and Dr. George and Nancy. The screen back to you.
Okay, thank you so much, Ms. Ada, Dr. Henry, and Dr. Josh and Nancy for the book launch and the book introduction just now. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, hopefully you're still staying here. I would like to ask cooperation from everyone to turn on the camera because we want to take a photo group.
Hi guys, it's Eden here. One, thanks for helping out to inform or to actually on their camera. So I will be taking a few more seconds. So we have 4 pages here. Please bear with me. All right, hold on, yeah. I'm waiting for a few more person. All right. So I will be taking the first page of our screen. So please smile. So I will just cue 1, 2, 3. All right, hold on. Okay, I'll move on to the second page. All right, guys, please stay. Keep smiling. All right, I'll be taking for page number 2. 1, 2, 3. All right, great. Thanks, Juan. I took all the 4 pages. So back to you.
Okay. All right, great. Thank you. Thank you, Eileen, for helping take a picture. Okay, ladies and gentlemen and everyone, we almost end of the program. We appreciate for you to stay and being here until end of the program. But before that, before we end our first day event, allow me and to make announcement for our second day event, where we have a very interesting activity will be happen on the next day, such as we have a poems, printmaking demonstration, and also Firefly videos and Firefly arts, where you can find this and watch this at the Firefly International Network YouTube channel. Please go and see the attachment link at the chat box and at the comment below from who watch live from Facebook. And also we have a M&S World Firefly Day contest, such as coloring contest, drawing contest, comic strip, and origami activity. Please take note the terms and conditions apply for each activity. For further questions, please go to M&S website for further information. All right, so that's all for today. Thanks again for joining us and stay with us until the end of the program. I wish all of you have a good day and have a good weekend. Have a good sleep for nighttime in particular country. And again, I wish you all happy World Firefly Day 2021. Thank you.